Pat Robertson, ladies and gentlemen. Pat Mother Goddamn Robertson. You could say he's a pitiful excuse for a human being, but I don't even consider him a human being. I think the scientific name for his species is actually Homo parasiticus. Because let's face it, this man is a vulture. He is a carrion human. He is a vulture in a cheap human costume that fools only the most ignorant, or at best the most naive. There is no tragedy that he will not exploit. It does not matter how high you pile the bodies. He will always see an opportunity. It doesn't matter how many rivers you could fill with the tears of the victims. His heart will not go out to them because he has no heart. Where his heart should be, there is only a gland that secretes opportunism and money. This man, and I call him that in the loosest possible sense of the word man, is a hideous and twisted and mangled parody of a human being. In 1976, more than 30 years ago, and again in 1980, Pat Robertson said that the world was going to end in 1982. He did not say that it would probably end in 1982. He did not say that it might end in 1982. He said that it was guaranteed, and those were his exact words, guaranteed, to end in 1982. According to him, and his view of a supposedly infallible God, the world was supposed to end in 1982. Yet, here we are, 2010. The world seems to be chugging along just fine, Pat. Why is that? The 9/11 attacks. What was that due to? Oh, well, that wasn't due to terrorists. That wasn't due to unrest in the Middle East. No, that was due to the ACLU. That was due to pagans and feminists and abortionists and gays and lesbians and secularists. Pat Robertson had his evil twin Jerry Falwell on the 700 Club, and Falwell was rattling off all these people that were to blame, and you could see Pat Robertson sitting there nodding his empty head, and just like, I agree, Jerry, you're right. Ooh, yeah, that's correct. The greatest part of that whole interview, the greatest / worst part of that whole interview, was when Jerry Falwell, in that oh-so-tragic voice said, Americans probably deserved the 9/11 attacks. They probably deserved it. And Pat Robertson's like, oh, I agree. Does that amount to treason? I'll let you decide, but to me, it seems like when you say America deserves the attacks, and you're siding with Osama bin Laden, and you're saying that we need to get rid of all these things that our freedom is a direct result of, like gays and lesbians and abortionists and the ACLU and whatever else, I think that makes you somewhat treasonous. Maybe you couldn't go to trial for treason, but it seems to me like in your heart you are a traitor to your own country. I might be treasonous against the government in some ways, but I'm certainly not treacherous against the people of the United States of America in the expression of their freedoms. And these people, they detest freedom. They detest everything that's good about America and love everything that's horrible about it. They love the fascism. They love the religious right. They love when we pass things like the Patriot Act. They adore those things because they think people are sheep, and they want those sheep herded. They want those sheep herded into their little meat factories to be ground up and fed back to themselves. And the funny thing is, after the 9/11 attacks, Pat Robertson predicted that in 2007 there was going to be an even worse attack. He said that he didn't hear the Lord say nuclear, but he thought it would be something close. And then after the 2007 mass killings on American soil didn't happen as he predicted, he said, well, it's because us Christians prayed and changed God's mind. How do you change God's mind, Pat? I thought God had a plan. I thought God was infallible. I didn't think that a few people whispering, hey, God, please don't kill us, I didn't think that would work. I thought the whole point of God is that he kind of does what he wants, Pat. In 2006, there was flooding all over the Northwest, and Pat Robertson said, "Oh yes, this is just as I predicted. This is the new Sodom and Gomorrah. This is God's judgment. This is God's wrath." He fails to mention that in the same year as he predicted this flood, he also predicted that we were going to leave Iraq as victors, and he also predicted that the Republicans were going to win in landslides in the elections because of the great economy. Neither of those things happened in 2006. He said the Lord was going to shake the earth. And this is the best part for me. He said, "If I heard the Lord right, the coast is going to be bombarded with tsunamis." If you heard the Lord right, what was God murmuring? Was God eating a donut at the time? "Hey Pat, there's all tons of these bombs to tsunamis. Sorry, gotta go." What was that, Lord? Come on, repeat that. Oh, damn it. He's gone. How does that happen? Ooh, the Lord is like not clear on this. He's just like kind of whispering at you. "Hey Pat, there should be tsunamis." What? What? Lord? Oh, damn. Who is your God? Is your God Obi-Wan Kenobi? Is he the ghost of Yoda coming with some vague instructions like, "Tsunamis, come, Will"? It's like, God, can you please speak forward, please? This God that you have, Pat, is nothing more than an I God. He is a God that reflects your own ego and your own prejudice. This is a God that is based upon your biases, and that is it. This is a God that you have basically constructed to deal with your own petty hatreds. A way to elevate your disdain for your fellow man into something that's noble. You've actually turned your own bitter, cynical hatred of all mankind into something that's noble, some great aspiration that you can climb to. "Oh yes, I hate everyone and I exploit them, but it's okay because I do it in the name of God. I do it because God said so, and that makes me the good guy. It doesn't matter how evil I act, because I'm acting in the service of a good and benevolent Lord." And of course the reason I'm talking about Pat Robertson is because of his most recent egregious example of his hatred, his pure revulsion at the human species. For those of you who haven't been paying attention to the news, Haiti has basically been destroyed by a 7.0 earthquake. Thousands are going to die of thirst, and Pat Robertson said on his show today that it was probably a blessing in disguise what happened to Haiti, because it tore down all those old crummy buildings so they could build new great buildings. Yeah, because everyone knows that the Haitians have the economic capability to build a bunch of shiny new plazas. And when one of his own correspondents basically told him to his face that he was being a naive jackass, Pat's response was to make up some crazy story about how the Haitians only overthrew the French because they made a bargain with the devil. He's talking about the Haitian Revolution. You know, the Haitian Revolution was about slavery. So what is Pat? Is he pro-slavery? Is he saying that they were wrong to cast out people who were enslaving them? Is Pat Robertson pro-slavery? You know what? I don't even think he is. And I think Pat Robertson is just in favor of Pat Robertson, and any disgusting or amoral thing that comes out of his mouth is just instantly vindicated because he puts the God Band-Aid on it. Whenever he says something despicable and horrible, you know what? He's got the God Band-Aid. And the mainstream media just says, okay, well, that's his religious beliefs. It's absurd to do that. When the 9/11 hijackers crashed into those buildings, did anyone just say, well, you know, they're just acting in accordance to their beliefs. That makes it okay. No, it doesn't make it okay. Just because you do something in the name of faith doesn't make it good or right or acceptable. Pat Robertson is an abomination. He is a terrible, 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 wretched, vile, and horrible human being. I nominate Pat Robertson for the worst person of 2010. No. I nominate Pat Robertson for the worst person of the last 30 years. Look, folks, natural disasters are going to happen. It's not because it's the will of God, it's just because things like that happen. We live on a planet of variables, and sometimes you get the shit end of the stick. And really there's three ways we can react to that. We can do something progressive and we can try to help our fellow man. We can just ignore them. Or we can try to exploit them. Pat Robertson has opted for the third option. What option are you going to opt for? Because I'll tell you what, the second option, it isn't much better.